Hi everybody, welcome to Simple Art at Home with me, Laura Houston. Today we have a very special show about a postage stamp that's coming out very soon. But before I get into the lesson about the Go for Broke Soldiers postage stamp, let's go ahead and take a look at some of that fabulous student art. Kids art. Thank you so much for sending in your student art to me. I always love seeing what you do. You can't see this, but my cat just jumped up on my art table right now. But I love seeing what you do, and I keep my email right there on the bottom corner of the screen so that you always know how to reach me. So as you can see here, we have a very special postage stamp. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch a movie. My cat is going to drink, this is Charlie, he's going to drink the water that I'm using for water painting. So we're going to go ahead and watch a video that I made that gives some background history of this stamp, and then we'll do the art project together. So let's take a look. Stamp Our Story: Perseverance, Patriotism, and Service. This is the story of the Japanese American men and women who served in the U.S. military during World War II and their commemorative U.S. postal stamp. The U.S. Postal Service will issue the Go for Broke Soldiers commemorative postage stamp on Thursday, June 3rd, 2021. The first city of issue is Los Angeles, California. This stamp is one small step toward honoring the proud, diverse history of our armed forces and of our nation as a whole. It took many people 15 years to get the stamp issued. This slideshow tells the story. Why is the stamp so special? Many Japanese American men and women patriotically served in the U.S. military during the war, despite our nation's mass incarceration of their families, friends, and communities in incarceration camps on American soil. They served in an intense war, all while prejudice was directed at them and at the whole Japanese American community. To learn more about the background story, I suggest you watch the Fred Korematsu art video that's also in my playlist. Japanese American incarceration. In February of 1942, the U.S. government began to make Japanese Americans on the West Coast leave their homes and report to incarceration camps. They were given very little time to gather their belongings. Many had to sell their property and businesses very quickly for little money. Take a look at the picture on the right. Notices like this one were posted around towns with instructions for Japanese Americans. Here you see Japanese Americans arriving at one of the incarceration camps in Postage, Arizona. You can see them waiting in line, and you can see in the background the barracks where they would be living. Many soldiers enlisted while being imprisoned in the incarceration camps, and they left behind family and friends who remained confined while they fought overseas. They believed in the importance of service. Many women trained to become nurses while in the incarceration camps, with the hopes of being able to serve their country as well. Look at the picture that is dated June of 1943. The Japanese American 442nd Regimental Combat Team, RCT, and the 100th Infantry Battalion became the most highly decorated unit for its size and length of service in American military history. So what is the meaning of "go for broke" on the upper corner of the stamp? Well, "Go for broke" was the motto of the 100th and 442nd Regimental Combat Team, meaning go for your goal with everything you've got. So on the next 3 slides, I'm going to be introducing some vocabulary words to you. And the reason I am doing this is because we are going to use these vocabulary words to help us with our art project in a few minutes. So let's take a look at this first picture. What is perseverance? If you persevere, then you continue trying to do something even though it is difficult. And at this point, you might want to pause and have a discussion with your class. Look at the photograph. How is the family in the photograph showing perseverance? And they are in the Postage living quarters in the incarceration camp in Arizona. What is patriotism? If you show patriotism, then you show a love for your country. Another word is patriotic. Discussion. Look at the picture. How do you know that the men in the picture believe in patriotism? What is service? Service is work done by an organization or an individual that provides something to the public without selling goods. Look at the 2 pictures. Discussion. How might the women in the photos provide service? A special stamp dedication ceremony will take place at the Japanese American National Museum on June 4th, 2021. As I said before, Los Angeles was chosen as the first city of issuance because of its special connections to the stamp story. People can buy the stamp starting on June 3rd, 2021 at your local post office and online. Let's make some art. So I hope you learned something new by watching that informative slideshow that I made. I know I learned a lot creating that, and I'm really excited. I'm going to purchase the stamp, and in just a moment I'm going to show you some examples of postage stamps and what they're used for. For today's lesson, you're going to need a piece of white paper. You'll need a pencil, a black pen for outlining, and something to color with. And always it's a good idea to get a good eraser. So I will meet you at the table. Okay, so I thought I should show you some examples of postage stamps because I realized maybe some of you have not used them before. I found these that I had, and if you look very closely, they are like stickers, and these are called, these are forever stamps. They cost 55 cents a piece, and I'll show you exactly. I have an envelope here that I will be using soon, but I couldn't put the names and addresses on them. But basically, when you want to send a first class envelope in the mail or a letter in the mail, the stamp goes right up here in the upper right corner, and then you write your name and address on the upper left side, and then the person who you are sending the letter to, their name and address goes right here in the middle. And then very quickly, oh, and these stamps were celebrating Lunar New Year. They're beautiful. You can get all different kinds of stamps at the post office. And then here, this is what happens. So once you send it, it goes through the post office, and the post office runs it through their machines and stamps it, and then it gets delivered in the mail. Okay. So for today's art lesson, as I said, you're going to need a piece of paper like this. And I'm just using, I am using some watercolor paper because I will paint in a few minutes. But this is how I came up with my idea for the art. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to create your own postage stamp. And if you think back to the 3 vocabulary words that were in the slideshow, they were perseverance, patriotism, and service. And so I recommend before you start your art project that you draw a circle map like I did, and you can write my stamp art in the middle. This will just help you brainstorm some ideas. So I started with the word patriotism, and I just thought of some symbols or ideas that represent patriotism. And I think of colors, red, white, and blue, and stars. I think of hearts because patriotism is like a love for your country. A bald eagle is a traditional symbol for our country, the United States. You might want to draw someone in your family who loves the United States. You can put them on your postage stamp. See, you're going to be designing your own postage stamp. The Statue of Liberty, to me, is a symbol of patriotism. The U.S. flag, song lyrics. You might want to create a stamp that has the theme of perseverance. And perseverance, remember, is continuing to do something even though it is difficult, such as finishing your work, practicing your instrument daily, telling yourself you can do it, or trying again if you fail at first. And perseverance is not giving up. So anything that you can think of to draw that goes along with those phrases might be helpful. And then finally, there's the idea of service. That's my other cat. I'm sorry, everybody. You know what it is? I think it's getting close to dinner time and the cats are restless. So there's the idea of service. And service is helping people. Anything that a person does to help people. You know, doctors help people, teachers, police officers, nurses, soldiers, even mail carriers. You know, mail carriers deliver the mail. So I did this first to come up with my idea, and I decided that I'm going to create a stamp that has the Statue of Liberty on it. And you are more than welcome to draw along with me, or if you want to do your own stamp with your own idea, you can certainly do that as well. And I'm just going to keep this here. I'm going to just keep these words here because, you know, and the reason that we are focusing on these words, it's because the Japanese American men and women, soldiers, exhibited these traits, the idea of perseverance, patriotism, and service. And so our art, when we're creating a stamp, it is to honor them and remember them. So the first thing that I recommend that you do is we're going to we got to make our paper look like a stamp. And I know you cannot see this very well, but the edge of a stamp has little curved borders. I'm going to hold that really close to the camera. I'm holding it sideways here. Let me hold it the correct way. You can see those little curved edges, okay? So we're not going to worry about making these all perfect and uniform. All I'm going to do is I'm going to try to move my hand so you can see it, but we're just going to do little half circles that kind of go off the edge like that, and then leave a space and do another half circle. If you really wanted to trace something that's in the shape of a circle, you could, but I'm not worrying about that. That's not like the main point of this lesson. So there we have some circles, some half circles. Leave the corner as is, and then move in and make some more half circles. And I don't think I am going to cut them out, but you certainly could if you want to take the time to cut these out to make your paper look even more like a stamp. And while I'm thinking about it, I do ask you every week to take pictures of your art and send your art into me through my email. But this week's art lesson is really important because we are going to send our art to Mr. Wayne Osako, and he actually was the co-chair who worked on the Stamp Our Story campaign. Remember I said in the video that several people worked for 15 years to get this stamp printed? Well, he was one of those people, and we're going to send our art to him digitally. And he said that he's going to the ceremony, the celebration where the stamp will be released, and he would take our art and share it through pictures or somewhere at the ceremony. So I think that is really, really great. Okay, so now we have our edges that kind of look like a postage stamp. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to I'm going to sketch a little like a border, and I'm not using a ruler. As you can see, this project today, it's all just, just free-handed. I'm not going for perfection. That's not the look that I want today. If you want to use a ruler, you certainly can. Remember, I'm always here just to give you ideas. So we want our stamp, we want the image that's in the middle of our stamp to have like a border. We don't want our image to go all the way to the edge. So I'm just sketching a border, and I will outline this later with a black pen, but you can kind of see that there. These stamps have two sides have like a gold border around the edge. It kind of frames the image. That's what we're creating. Okay, so in order to get this right, I'm going to line up a few things. I decided that I'm going to write the word patriotism on my stamp, and I want the word patriotism to be somewhere up here, because remember, those three words, that's the theme of our stamp. So right up here, let's see, I didn't even really plan this out. Let's see if I can make it somewhat centered. That's good. That's why we always, like, I keep an eraser here too if I ever want to erase something. And when it comes to the Statue of Liberty, I know that I want to draw a center line very lightly, because I don't want this to show up. I probably will erase it later. So here I have a center line. And don't worry, if you can't see very well, I will go over this with black pen. And then I'm going to do another crisscross here in the center, because I just want to line up this. And then I'm going to actually divide this box into fourths. Let's see, four sections. It's actually eighths, but I mean 1, 2, 3, 4 this way, but actually it's eighths. If the math teachers are watching. But I meant like 4 sections this way. Okay, now these sections will act like a grid and kind of help me figure out where I want to put parts of my drawing here. Let's see, I'm going to bring this a little bit lower. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I'm going to kind of start with her head here. And I'm going to make our Lady Liberty out of very simple shapes. Very simple shapes. Okay, and then coming down here, we'll just put neck here, and she's going to be rather, let's see, kind of rather square, kind of. You'll see it's going to be just a very simple shape. I'm going to start, let's see, something like this. And I think I want to make sure that it looks like she's on a pedestal. So I'll have something here. Okay, this is like the basic shape that she's in. Let's see. Let's put her hair here. So we'll just kind of put simple hair like this. And then we can have more hair going down the sides. And we can go ahead and do her eyes. So for her eyes, I think I'm just going to, remember, eyes go near the center. And I'll hold this up closer to the camera so that you can see. And we can just do some circles here. And then I think we'll just do a simple nose and a very small suggestion of a smile and a little chin. Let me hold this up and kind of see what I'm doing with that there. Okay. And before I add her crown, I think I want to draw her arm. Okay. So starting from this line right here, we're going to make her robe and her arm begin and kind of go up here. And it's actually going to go up to this line right here. And her arm comes right out, kind of straight this way. Okay. And then I will erase that. There we go. There's a lot of other lines that we will end up erasing, but her hair is going behind her shoulders. And then, as I said, we're going to really simplify this. I am going to draw kind of like this round circle to represent her fist, because she's going to be holding a torch, right? We're very much simplifying this, because I wanted this to be a project that everybody can do. So we'll put a rectangle here. As I said, these are very simplified shapes, and then just connect it like this. And then on top is actually a flame, right? It's a torch that she's holding, but we're going to do a very simplified, like a half circle, something like this. And we're just going to put little triangle shapes, half triangle shapes there at the top. Okay, and then let's continue with her other arm over here. So she has the torch over here, and then on this side she's going to have, let's first draw the tablet. It's a tablet or a book of laws that she holds, and so we're just going to draw a rectangle that's kind of that's tilted. So we're going to make it about, and some of it's going to go behind like this. Have it go like this. Oops. Let's see. Like that. Because we want her arm to come around. So then this arm will come down here. And again, remember, you can draw anything that you want. I'm just offering some suggestions. To me, this is what I think of when I think of patriotism. And we did the circle here to represent her fist. We can do another like little half circle here, and then a line going down to kind of represent her arm holding this tablet or this book of laws. Okay, now we need to get her crown on her. So her crown has 7 spikes, and why don't we start in the center, like the top center of her head. Okay, and then we'll just keep going. So if one is center, we'll do 3 on each side. And if you need to turn your paper a little bit, you can. So 1 in the center, 3 on this side, and we'll do 3 on this side. We'll do 1 over here and 1 over here. Okay, so we have her 7 spiked crown, and why don't we add a little decoration on her robe, just kind of something that comes over, a little line that cuts across to add interest. Okay, and then I think, she is on an island, right? She's on Liberty Island. And so why don't we show water behind her, so we can kind of do a horizon line about right here. So it doesn't look like she's floating it, and it'll just add interest. So we'll do a horizon line, and we can kind of go like this. Add some little watermarks here. And Why don't we also add some clouds? Okay, and then the way that I'm going to make my clouds is I'm going to have them some go off the page, and I like a trick that I like to use. I know it's hard for you to see since I'm tilting my paper. Here, let me try to just move myself so you can see this. You're going to draw a straight line. So the bottom of the cloud is actually a straight line. And then you can just kind of do these puffy half circles that show the cloud and then go off that edge, okay? And let's do another one here. So draw a straight line. I'm gonna have this one I don't wanna line them up. I'm gonna make this one shorter. And I'll do a little curve and maybe make this one bigger and another one and kind of show that it's going off the page. Why don't we have another cloud that kind of comes out from behind her? I think that'll be interesting. So again, straight line on the bottom, do a little half circle, like the poofiness, cotton ball-ish part of the cloud, like that. And why don't we do one more over here that goes off this edge, okay, over by her arm. And again, there's some small ones, and then going up, and then going up and over. Okay. So I just need a few more things to add to my stamp. So I chose my word, patriotism. Okay, I would like you to choose service or perseverance. And then why don't we write what you see on a stamp? So let's see if the camera can pick this up. So on every postage stamp, it will say forever. And that means it's a forever stamp that whatever you pay for it, you can always use it, even if the price increases. So these stamps are 55 cents. So it says forever, really small there. And then it also says USA on every postage stamp. And on the side, this one says Lunar New Year. Okay, so I'm going to write forever. And I think I might, even though it's usually written in block script, I'm going to do some cursive right here. I'm going to write the word forever. Let's see. And then maybe above that, I'll put my USA. And I think that's good. I don't need to write 55 cents. Usually stamps, they used to have the actual cost on them. So I'm going to start with the outlining. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start with Lady Liberty's head and her crown. Okay, so I'm just going to trace over this. If you have a black crayon or a black pen or even like a black colored pencil, you might want to outline along with me, but you certainly don't have to. If you've seen my art shows before, I usually do outline my work before I paint it. Okay, and then I'm going to just draw her eyes and a little nose, slight smile to her mouth, and a little suggestion of a chin, and her neck right there. And then I'm going to start with the crown pieces. There are 7 spikes on her crown, and the 7 spikes represent the 7 seas and the 7 continents of the world. And it's the idea that liberty should be shared with everyone all over the world. And she's standing on land that belongs to the National Park Service, which is called Liberty Island. So there's her 7 spikes on her crown. And then let's go ahead and draw her robe. She's actually made of copper. And if you see art or pictures of her, she's usually colored green. And that is because the copper oxidizes. Pennies are made of copper, right? But they they do not oxidize because they are treated. But other kinds of copper develop what we call a patina, and copper turns green. And why don't we bring this down here? This is her robe. And let's just kind of draw her other round hand. And it's just a suggestion of a hand. Here's the couple of lines that go across her robe. The Statue of Liberty was sent to the United States in the year 1886. She was a gift. I think she was a gift. Was it France that she was a gift from? I think that's how the story goes. And her job was always to welcome the immigrants, people who were coming to America, and especially by ship, because she could be seen in the harbor, and her torchlight could be seen by people arriving, almost like a lighthouse, right? How you can see a lighthouse from far away. So can you imagine immigrants arriving on a ship to the harbor and seeing the Statue of Liberty? You might have relatives or from long ago who had stories of that from long ago, maybe written down somewhere. Here's the ocean background, and it's kind of the waves or the motions of water here. And she sits on top of a star-shaped fort. I always thought she was just on a big pedestal, but she's actually on top of a fort that's shaped like a star. This is my stamp outline. And then when it comes to her torch, that light represents light or enlightenment that is needed to achieve freedom. So you have to be able to see freedom or know it exists in order to achieve it. And that's what the light from her torch represents. Okay, so I am going to write patriotism with my thick Sharpie. This is a fine point, and the other one is ultra fine point. I'm just going to use all caps. Okay. And I will outline the clouds. Again, straight line along the bottom. And then these little half circle curves to show the fluffy clouds. Okay. So it looks like that's everything that I wanted to use my black pen for. I am going to use my eraser since these light lines will show through my watercolors, and I don't want those lines necessarily really dark. There. I'm not going to erase them all, but just some, just so they don't take away from the overall drawing. Okay, so here we go. Oh, I'll just do a few more up here. I think it's totally worth it to invest in a really good eraser. All right, so I'm gonna get ready to paint. Just kind of organize my workspace here. So I have water. That's what Charlie jumped on the desk. He loves water. He wanted to drink it. Okay, so it kind of looks like we have the edges of a stamp. Like I said, if you want to cut yours out, you can. Okay, and remember, you can create anything that you want to on your stamp. You know, think about the slideshow that I showed you, and if your teacher went through the lesson with you in class about the Nisei soldiers, and if there was anything that you saw and that you feel inspired to do with your artwork, with your stamp art, you definitely can. There's a lot that you can do. I'm gonna do everything green, including her tablet or her book of laws. And this tablet in real life has Roman numerals that say July 4th, 1776, to celebrate our country's independence. Yeah, she's just gonna be all green. I'm going right over everything. I hope you do go ahead and do the circle map to brainstorm ideas for your stamp art. Remember the themes. I'll just keep them right here for now. Again, perseverance, patriotism, and service. Okay. I'm just going to keep going with my green. And remember, if you're doing a Statue of Liberty as well, you can color your art any way that you want to. You don't have to use the same colors that I'm using. You can be as creative as you want to be. You can write whatever you want on your stamp. Maybe you want to do abstract art and use the colors, red, white, and blue. Maybe you want to put stars on it. Some of you watching may have had grandparents who were Japanese American soldiers. I know some students at Stoddard especially who have grandparents whose grandparents were in incarceration camps and who also decided to serve our country. I think it's time for me to get a fresh tray of watercolor paints. The next week when you see me paint, I'll have a new one because I am definitely running out of green. And I think, let's see, I'm just going to continue just to keep it all together. I'm going to keep this green too. Now, I'm thinking in my head as I'm doing this that I know my sky will be blue, and I don't want the water to be the same exact color as the sky. So I think I'm going to use more of maybe a blue-green color here for the water. And I might mix some blue into it. And I also might fade this out softer as I go. let's see how we can make this work. Yeah. See how I kind of did it darker at the top and lighter at the bottom? Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I like this blue-green color for the ocean. You have to, plan out your colors before you start painting or coloring. I like to, set my crayons out and look at what I have. Look at your inventory before you start painting. Okay, so sky, I will do blue. I'm gonna use this real light blue, and I might use the same technique. I might, start it out with more color up here towards the top, and as I get closer to the ocean, I will lighten it up. I'll show you a trick with the clouds too, because we also don't want to leave the clouds pure white. I think it's always nice to have some hint of color in the clouds. I have to be careful when I go around the spikes because I don't want my blue to run into the green because it's all still wet. But even if it does, it's okay. Sometimes I think it actually looks interesting. I'm going to leave the border on the edge white, for the edge of the stamp. So I think it'll bring out, it'll look good with the clouds being mostly white. But now that I think of it, so far I'm using mostly cool colors, and I want to bring in a warm color around the word patriotism. And I think I want to bring in red, because then we would have red, white, and blue in this painting of my stamp. Okay, just about done with the sky. I'm really lightening it up down here. You see the technique that I'm using? I'll show you. So it's really just the color is just going to dissipate. I think it looks interesting to just I'll put a little more over here to balance it out. Okay. All right, so let me hold this up so far so you can see how I did the blue sky. Okay, so when it comes to the clouds, I'm just going to first I'm just using water right at around the base of the cloud. And then I'm gonna grab some black, which I know comes out like gray. My black water, and I use Crayola watercolors. The black ends up looking like gray. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing here, and I might soften that a bit. Let's try that again down here. So I'm just doing a line near the bottom, but I'm gonna soften that line, and it's just going to add, there we go, a little interest to the clouds. You see how it makes the clouds a little more interesting? Do that here as well, and I'm gonna go ahead and put some water here, dab a little bit of black. So if you have black, just do it ever so softly. Just a little bit, there. Let's see if I can soften this just a little bit. Good. Now I wanna use a little bit of red. I don't want to cover my letters, so I think I'll just put some red around the edge, and it's really going to make The red's gonna make all the other colors pop, I think. Everything will look good next to the brightness of that red. I really want to see your stamp art. What is your story? How do you view patriotism, or how do you view service? What does it look like in a piece of art? Or what does perseverance look like in a piece of art to you? Kind of stamp art. I'm just going to outline a little bit, and then I'll soften the edges. Okay. Now I'm just going to soften that a little bit. I'm just adding water. Okay. And I hope that when you are creating your art, that you also think back to what you learned about the brave Japanese American soldiers and all the brave soldiers who, men and women, soldiers and nurses who served in the United States Armed Forces. So it looks like I think I am finished with my stamp. And there she is. Statue of Liberty, I think, to me, is a symbol of patriotism. She welcomes immigrants. She's a symbol of, welcoming people. And here is my stamp. So I will meet you back up at the easel. Okay, so here's my stamp. I hope you enjoyed creating some art along with me today, and I hope that you learned something new about the Go for Broke soldiers and the stamp that is coming out on June 3rd. And I know I certainly will be purchasing some of these very special stamps from the post office. Thank you so much for following along with me. And before we go, let's take one last look at that fabulous kids art. Kids art. See you next time.